There are 2 points I want to cover on Blizzard World. Both of them are on second point. Here's the best one on the attack where people like to set up on the tank up there or even behind. You can actually diag straight off this rock and get really good coverage onto their backline. I think you can even land with a big E over here, but you can contest the tank and DPS that like to play on the high grounds behind. On the defense, you can go off of this sign as well to get onto the top of that tank, but I think this one's a little bit easier. I kind of struggle with that one where you can just kind of get a nice little diagonal punch straight up onto the tank or get a nice E to follow up onto this thing right here. On Busan Downtown, you want to blindside a team from over here. Go for a diagonal punch off of this, and you can get a nice E uppercut and land on the high ground here to finish targets off. I wouldn't recommend doing that one unless you have your ultimate ready. Another setup that's really good is you can just come up here, wait for them to come in, and once they come down main, you can go for a big 125 right here in the choke point to finish people off. My favorite rollout on Dorado is on the first point defense, where if you bounce off of this pillar, you can get a nice E onto anybody that's climbing up onto the high ground, like soldiers come up here, Hanzo's peeking this window, Widowmakers as well. What's really risky that you can do as well, if you time the bounce right, you can actually get up onto that roof and get a 125 E onto their entire team that's like right over here. You can kind of stall up here as well if you need to and get a fat E, although that's way riskier. I wouldn't recommend doing it, and getting the proper bounce angle is really, really difficult. I struggle with it myself, so I wouldn't really recommend going for that 125E, but if you practice it enough, you absolutely can get it and devastate support backlines who think they're safe, when in reality, you can just do a big fat E onto them right there. On Eichenwald, you could always go for the classic rollout. That's pretty risky, going for the big E right here. Though it's pretty outdated and players know to look for it, I wouldn't really recommend it. To be honest, the best setup on Eichenwald is just kind of on this high ground right here. You can really wait for anybody, but on the attack, what you can do, if you get into this choke point here, you can rotate back up onto the high ground this way and get a nice E or punch E into behind them over here to get a nice little setup going. It's very risky though. Eichenwald offense doesn't have the best setups, but once you learn a couple of them, like I think you can go off this car as well to get onto the high ground behind. Like you should try to set up behind their team and use the first rollout on the attack to get over in this general direction. On Hanamura, you can set up on this roof here and get an E onto this to get a really good angle onto their backline. You can either go over this rooftop here and look for a really good E onto their backline, or you can go off of that roof to land way in the back here to get onto this and rotate behind them. My favorite rollout on Havana is if there are snipers on this first point high ground. You can punch from cover here and bounce to get a really nice E onto them up top on this window, or even better, you can actually get all the way over to this one and get that 65 damage amp, because a lot of snipers will see you coming and then want to rotate back to their team, and you can catch them out here. On Hollywood, there are two that I want to go over. There's one kind of tough diagonal you can do here to contest the high grounds really well. As you jump right there, you can get a nice uppercut onto anyone up here. It helps you take high ground really, really quickly and deny DPS who are shooting at you from up top, which is what you need to do if you're attacking as Doomfist. On the defense though, there's a really good one that doesn't work a whole lot, but if you land it, it almost guaranteed kills supports. If they're coming in to push onto first point, you can uppercut from this AC unit right here and do a fat E and land in the middle of their team, but you have to angle it just right. So you uppercut onto this AC before the fight starts, you uppercut again, go forward a little bit and try to get your forward velocity. You can land right on their team here, although the best way to get it done would be if you could come from farther over this way and land on this side of the roof and slide back down right there. That's a really good one, but it's hard to do and it takes a lot of time, so wouldn't recommend it too much, but if you want to gimmick a team like that, especially in lower ranks, it could absolutely work. A really good one on Ilios is you can punch off of this dome on both sides of the map and go really high up in the air. You can get to over here, contest somebody on this high ground here, but I think this one's a little bit easier to do for some reason, but you can get a ton of map space from one punch just from going straight off of this thing. You can get all over here, literally anywhere on the point of well, so it's really, really useful for taking space and contesting DPS who might be sniping up here, like a pharmacy, an echo. Really, really useful one. You should always try to do it on Ilios. On Junkertown, there's actually a stall spot right here that you can get to on any character that can climb a wall, right? So like as Hanzo, you can do this, Genji, you can do this, wherever. You can just kind of stall here. They can see you on that high ground, but if they don't see you, you can get a nice E onto their backline, or on the offense even, a lot of Widowmakers like to set up over here. You can actually uppercut and maybe catch them off guard if they aren't paying attention, and just slowly coast over this way, or set up here and punch straight over the roof onto their backline onto this side and get any angle here that you really want. On King's Row, you can do a little bounce off of this car to get up to the high grounds over here, or even up here if there's a Widowmaker. A pretty good rollout on the offense that I do as well, you need your team to do it with you, is if your team pushes in, you can kind of diagonal around that corner and get a nice E onto supports who'd like to play right here. But make sure your tanks are pushing in to help you, because it'll leave you only with your uppercut to get out, and that's not enough time. You'll still have 1 or 2 seconds stuck in their backline, which you'll probably die in if you don't have help. On Night Market, there aren't really any insane rollouts you can do. The only one I can really think of is if you go over the top this way, you can get a 125 E onto their backline here, but it's really risky. I would just play to kind of punch spot on this map. There's not a whole lot to do. On Shrine, you can go over this huge rooftop and kind of glide out and buy time. If there are a lot of people on the point, they'll usually shoot you, so I like to do this at the start of the map just to get positioning over here. But if you want to do a crazy one that I used to do back in Doomfist meta, if they like to come from main, you can actually kind of diag off of this right here to get a nice E onto their backline, but I would only do that if you have your ultimate on the ready. Otherwise, it's not really a good move to make. However, if your ult is ready, you can go for this really, really big one right here and try to cut people off on their backline. That's also a good one as well. Really depends on having your ult, because there's not too many setups on this map, but it's really good if you're willing to go deep and get value. NUMBANI has a couple that I want to go over, so you guys are getting a bonus on this one. For one, you can just punch this high ground by going off of this bus. If you get it just right, you won't have to use any of your cooldowns, and it's really important that you can do that, because once you get up here, normally you have to use multiple cooldowns, so their DPS who would like to hold this high ground will poke you out. But if you can get up here with only using 1 cooldown, you'll have some abilities ready to fight, right? So there it is right there. If you punch a little bit more on that angle, you can actually get up here with just your punch, meaning if you land here and their supports are back there, you can drop off, get an E uppercut onto the back line, and by the time you've done that, your punch will be back to get out. One bonus one as well, it's a weird angle, but you can punch off of this car and diag right up onto this high ground here pretty easily, only using 1 cooldown as well, so very useful tip. On Oasis City Center, one you can go for is off the jump pad here. If you kind of land over this way, you can go over to their backline and get a nice E on the people coming through the choke. It's pretty risky because they'll probably hear you coming, but there's not too much fancy stuff to do on this map that's essential to winning. So it's definitely a bit of a risk, but if you kind of punch out of it really quickly here, you can kind of glide and maybe make it a little bit more quiet so that people don't know you're coming, but you gotta really cut that punch short. I don't even know if this is a good idea. No, this is not a good idea. I would not do that. On Rialto, now this map is more of get quaked on specialty, so if you want to see some crazy rollouts that are a little less practical for the game, head over to his channel. But this one that I've seen is tough to do, but you can actually punch off of this, get an uppercut here, and E over the top if the cart is in the right spot. Now, it's not too practical, like I said, but if you can get it down and figure out just the right angle to go on, you can actually get some nasty, like 125 slams onto supports right here when the cart is stuck, and usually your tanks won't be able to make space on this choke point to get you in. If you go over the top, probably you only want to do this with your ultimate. You know, you might be able to get a support or somebody out just to get you the space that you need, but it's a very wonky angle. Even I struggle with it sometimes, like, oh, there it is right there. But no, it's really good, and I guarantee you they probably won't see you coming from this angle, so it could be really, really dangerous. The best rollout on Route 66 is definitely on the first point offense. Not many people know about this. It works especially well with dive because it is risky, but if you're attacking on first and the cart's coming around this corner, you can come in through the cave, charge a punch, and do a bounce off this AC unit that allows you to get a really nice E. Generally, you want to land here so you can use your uppercut to kind of land back over this sign and get some cover, but if you want to go really deep, which I don't recommend doing, I think that you can get all the way back there as well, and no one can see you coming, which is the best part, because by the time you've poked your head, your E is already started and it's not enough time for an Ana to really react to sleep you and stuff like that. Especially you have dive tanks coming in. Just quick, easy boom. Oh, I messed it up right there. Just quick, easy boom from in cover here. They don't see you coming. 65 E, uppercut, land on the other side of the sign if you can. Get cover, easy kills. On Temple of Anubis, I'm sure everybody's seen this punch up here where you can go all the way up to the top by punching off either that wall or this wall just because of like how they're curved. I think that one's a little bit more consistent, but what I want to show you guys is if you get into here on the offense's Doomfist and there's like always an Asher or Widowmaker way up top in the back who've used their cooldowns most likely to recede, you can punch off this wall here too and get a nice E onto them to finish them off really quick and get a nice easy kill. On Volskaya Industry, there's one really good rollout on the offense to clear DPS on the high ground. If they're over on the left side, you want to go from the right, and if they're on the right, you want to go from the left. So basically what it is, you charge a punch here, and you want to bounce right off of this thing, okay? And you can get a really nice E onto them, and they usually won't have time to react. It catches people off guard. My favorite one is definitely when they're up there and coming from this side, because it really, really blindsides them, right? If you do the bounce perfectly, you're already in their whole team. You can uppercut and land back in your team, and most of the time if it's like a soldier or a widow, you'll catch them so off guard that they won't know what to do. There's a couple useful rollouts on Gibraltar. The one I like to do is off of this box on first point defense. It allows you to get to this high ground really easy and even one-shot people who are trying to rotate into server. But it's a great way to contest the widows that like to take high ground. Just a quick little diag off this box and you're already contesting them with only 2 cooldowns and you have your E to get out. A really tricky one on first point attack as well. If you diagonal off this box at just the right angle, you can get above that beam and get a really, really nice E onto the team that likes to stack on that top platform. I don't even know what it's called, but there it is right there, and you can get a really fat one. Although you need to take the angle tighter than that so that you don't have as much hang time in the air, but you can get a really fat E uppercut and just land in your team, builds your ultimate really, really quick. That is gonna do it for one Doomfist rollout on every map. If you like this video and you want to see more, make sure to leave a like and a comment down below, seeing kind of like what you want to know about Doomfist, because I do need to make some more Doomfist guides. I'm not really known for my rollouts. I just know a couple useful ones that are actually like practical that I tried to showcase to you guys today. But click now on screen if you want to subscribe to the channel and check out my ultimate Doomfist guide from last year. It's been your host, Sam, better known as Samito, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later. Hope you enjoyed the video. Peace out.